Jamie from Sweet Sentiment, and I am here with another short class for us today. I'm so excited to be featuring this stamp from the Rabbit Hole Designs. If you have not heard of this company, you need to, because you're totally missing out. They have the most amazing caffeinated series, and it's all of these little creatures that are totally addicted to coffee. So this is the little spider. He's just in time for Halloween. Although he doesn't have to be Halloween, he could totally be any season. I love this little spider. The expression on his face just cracks me up. So we're gonna color this little guy as our mini class today. I have stamped him with Memento London Fog. This is my new kind of go-to middle ground stamp. It's not that I am coloring with black lines, but it's also not that I'm coloring with no lines. It's kind of that in between. It's the middle ground. So London Fog is a great color for this. So you notice it's kind of gray. We're coloring on Sweet Sentiment coloring paper. So if I move it, you can see the little bit of sparkle and shimmer that's in the paper. This is pretty amazing paper, and I'll show you different ways that we can kind of manipulate it as we go. But let's get started. So we're gonna color this little guy purple. I feel like purple is a really great color for him. So I'm gonna pull out a purple blend that I really, really love. So I'm gonna set the markers this way so you can see the numbers. BV29, it's a really dark purple. It's kind of almost black. I have BV08, which again is a very dark purple. Then I have V17, which is kind of like a grape color. I have V15, which is actually almost more of a little bit of a pink color. And then for my highlight, I have V12, excuse me. So BV29, BV08, V17, V15, and V12. We're gonna use this to color the main body of this little spider. So again, as I always say, I'm gonna color with both caps off because I do not want my marker to leak on my paper. So I'm gonna put this up here in the corner so you know what color I'm coloring with. But with this marker, the barrels are pressurized. So if I only take one cap off, all the ink is going to be headed this way, and I'm not going to be able to control how thick my line weight is because all the ink is headed in one direction. I'm also going to turn my paper. I always like to turn my paper into a direction that is comfortable for my wrist and hand. And I'm going to start by looking at what's in front or what's closer to the sun or the light source. And I see this little tuft of hair is very much closer to the light source. So I'm gonna go around it with these little paintbrush motions, and I'm gonna just use this little paintbrush style motion to put a shadow behind his little tuft of hair here. And just quick little brush strokes. I know a lot of people call this flicking. I don't call it flicking because that seems weird to me. So I just call it paintbrush strokes because that's essentially what you're doing is you're using this like a paintbrush. Then I'm going to go around the outside of his fur, and everything that's kind of on the bottom, I'm going to leave a little brush stroke just to add dimension to him and to his fur and everything. He's a little hairy spider. So you see him kind of going around the bottom of all of these little pieces of fur here, or hair, and I'm still using that same kind of brush stroke motion. I'm going around where his arms would leave a shadow on his body because they would block the sun from that. And all the way around to this side. Oops, that one was kind of long. That's okay. Now, I'm gonna, oh, I missed one up here. I didn't start at the very top. Silly, silly me. All right, so now I'm gonna continue to look through this, and I'm gonna look at all of the ways that these would have shadows. So since I've already started shadowing the bottom, I know the sun or the light source is gonna be slightly above him. So I'm gonna go ahead and shadow the bottoms of these ones as well. The thing that I'm doing is I'm changing my direction because his hair would all grow in towards the center of his body. So I'm changing the direction of my brush strokes to match the way his hair would grow. And again, over here, just little brush strokes over here. And again, we're just really adding dimension to him. Now I'm going to pick a side. So I'm going to feel like the sun, since this is in shadow, I'm going to feel like the sun or the light source is coming kind of from this area and shining on him. So I'm going to put shadows on everything that's on this side. And in all honesty, guys, just talk yourself through it. If you're concerned about where your light source is coming from or anything like that, do what I just did and just kind of talk yourself through it. I feel like the sun is heading in this direction and I want to put the shadow over here. There's no Copic police that are going to come and tell you that your light source and shadow is in the wrong spot. So you can totally do it up however you want to. And I always tell people, if you're really bad at light source, just be really good with stories. So he's got jack-o'-lanterns all around him that are just outside of the frame that you can't see, and they're all shedding light on him. There you go. Boom, story. So now you have multiple light sources and nobody can make fun of you. It's all about your story. All right, so that's my BV29. Now I'm going to move on to my BV08. And again, always taking both caps off. Now I'm just going to elongate, oops, sorry. I hit the camera with my wrist. I'm just going to elongate these little shadows and bring them in. See how this is still a really, really dark purple? So I'm just going to keep on with these shadows and I'm just going to keep bringing them in. I'm not paying a lot of attention to where his little features are because I'm going to draw them in like this. So I know where they're at. And then afterwards, I'm going to go in with a black multi-liner probably and line them out. Just like that. Okay. Now, again, just coming up this way, adding these little brush strokes. And I always take a second to kind of stand back or lean back and look at this little guy and see, you know, maybe where I need to even things out, maybe where I need a little more, you know, a few more brush strokes, a little more of the purple or anything like that. So feel free to take your time and look at all that stuff and see, you know, where it is you need to add things and where you need to take things away. Well, it's really hard to take things away, but you get what I'm saying. So I'm continuing on, and notice I'm just doing these brush strokes towards me now. Some people can do them towards themselves. Some people can only do them away from themselves. For me, it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in or how much coffee I've had today. Just like this little guy, I think I've probably had 4 cups or more. And that's kind of what dictates if I can do these brush strokes towards me or away from me, or which direction I can go with them. Now, notice that my grip on my marker is actually really close to the nib, and I know that I'm getting my knuckles in the way of the camera a lot. But in order for me to have a lot of control over these brush strokes, I'm holding really, really close to the nib. The further back from the nib that you hold, the less control you're gonna have. So always try to hold the nib where you feel like you kind of find that sweet spot of how much control you have and how much control you actually really need. So if I'm doing like a larger area where I have bigger brush strokes, I move my fingers back on the barrel of the marker. So you'll see here where I don't need quite as much control because I'm sort of out in the bigger area. I can hold back on the barrel a little bit more. All right, our little spider's starting to take shape here. He's so darn cute. I just love this design. Rabbit Hole Designs has been amazing to work with. I just adore them. And you guys will be seeing lots of stuff from them in the future because this caffeinated series is totally right up my alley. You guys all know that if you've been a subscriber in my group or just hanging out in my group for any period of time. You totally know that the caffeinated series are my spirit animals. I need them all. I need all of them. Their new release is adorable. I can't wait for you guys to see everything that's in the new release. It's gonna be amazing. Okay, so now you see I've outlined his eye. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want the outline of his eye to kind of fall back a little bit. I don't want it to be in highlight like he has bug eyes. I want him to look kind of like he needs more sleep. Of course, that's why he's, you know, needing all the coffee. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to start to shade some of this a little bit because it's kind of curling away from the sun. So I'm adding dimension to that part as well. All these little brush strokes. Now in between here, I want to kind of give his face a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to add a couple brush strokes here. And then I'm going to add some down this way to kind of create like a nose for him. So just a couple little strokes to kind of create that like in the center where his face kind of concaves in a little bit. Then I'm going to go back to this side and I'm going to start these brush strokes headed in this direction. Always overlapping my previous color, but I'm really not laying down very much ink. If you guys notice, I'm going really, really lightly over the top of this because I don't want to wash out all the work that I've already done. So I'm not really laying down a lot of ink. I'm just kind of filling in with texture. And I feel like his hair is like super crazy, so it's going to be going kind of in every direction. Couple of hairs behind his eyes. Just like that. I love that the glitter on the paper shows through on the camera. It's actually very, very, very understated in person and not quite this glittery in person, but when you see it on the camera, it's like super, super glittery and I love it. Love it. All right, so V15 is our next color. And again, I'm just gonna come down here. I'm gonna add some to his little nose and around his little eyes. Okay, and I'm gonna start filling in again where I've already done. Just reaching toward the highlight more and more with each color. Notice I'm always using these little brush strokes, always pushing this shadow color towards the highlight. When I do hair, I'm always pulling that shadow color out. When I'm coloring clothes and skin, I'm always pushing that shadow color back. That way I can control how much is going into the highlight. And I'm purposely making his hair go in all kinds of funky, crazy directions. Normally I would be telling you make sure that the hair is all going in the proper direction, but I feel like this little guy needs crazy wild hair. So I'm kind of making a mess out of it on purpose because I want it to look like he's totally got a bad case of bedhead. sounds about right. He needs a bad case of bedhead. Look at this dude. Okay, so V12 is my last one. And I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna fill in all of this highlight area. And notice I'm not just like coloring back and forth, like I'm not just coloring. I'm still using those brush strokes because I still wanna keep that texture going. And also I wanna leave kind of white spots in there too, because if I leave those white spots, it's gonna look like the sun is hitting those areas, and it just adds another layer of highlight to it. So there's our angry little spider dude. He is super duper angry. So now before I lose track of where his mouth is, I'm gonna take my multi-liner, and this is just a Copic multi-liner in black. It's pigment ink, so it won't smear or anything with the Copics. And I have 0.1, so it's one of the larger tips. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reline his mouth, and I'm gonna just twitch one corner up a little bit, like he's got a little sly smile going on there. I'm gonna do the same thing to his eyebrows. And there we go. Now we're gonna color his legs. So actually, no, let's color his eyes first. So what I wanna do with coloring his eyes, since I have my multi-liner handy, is I have a couple of colors that I'm going to use. I'm gonna give him like kind of acid green eyes. So I'm gonna use G29 and YG01. This G29 is a fairly dark green, and the YG01 is kind of that bright acid green color with a very yellow base. So again, both caps off. And with this G29, I'm gonna use the darker part of his eyes. So this is part of why I stamped him in gray and not in black. So I'm gonna use the darker part of his eyes, and I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna add color, just like this. Some longer, some shorter, to his eyes. I'm gonna do the same thing on this one. And I know it's gonna look really weird at first, but I promise you, just stick with it. It'll totally come out. I love doing eyes. They're really fun for me. Okay. So now he has these really mean looking green eyes. I'm gonna leave this pen handy just in case I need it again. And I'm gonna take my YG01 and I'm gonna purposely oversaturate the paper to wash this out. So where I've stamped, I'm gonna do lots of little brush strokes over this, and I'm gonna purposely wash it out. Now you see I've colored away a lot of the green, so I'm gonna add a couple more little brush strokes here just to add that texture back. And then I'm gonna wash it out just a little bit more. Pretty fun, huh? Gives him these really cool eyes. So here we go with this one. Again, oversaturating the paper to wash it out. Adding a couple more of these little brush strokes back in. It gives you like kind of multi-dimensions in his eyes so that it's not just like one layer. So you can see the faded out ones in the back and you can see the lighter ones in the front, and it gives lots of dimension to his eyes. Now you see in this one where I've kind of gone over the edge of it, that's okay because I'm using my Sweet Sentiment coloring paper and I know that I can fix that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my colorless blender and I'm just gonna push that green back into where it belongs. And then I've taken that away. And there's no green stain left on the paper. It's really awesome. This paper is super fun and easy to work with. All right. So now what I'm gonna do is I have my T1, and you can substitute any color for this really of your light grays. So if you have C1 or W1 or N1, whichever one of those that you have, you can totally use that for this. And all I'm doing is I'm just adding a little shadow underneath his, where his eyelid is, assuming he has an eyelid. And this is just gonna help me kind of make it look like his eye has more dimension and that he's more tired. So I'm just adding a tiny bit like that. I don't like how harsh the lines end, so I'm gonna use my colorless blender and kind of push that back so that it sort of fades out a little bit more. And these are just little finishing touches, guys. As you get into coloring more and you're more familiar with your markers, you'll totally learn these techniques and what you like and what you don't like. So then I'm gonna take this multi-liner again, and I'm gonna color in the black part of his eyes. So I'm gonna hold really close to the nib so that I can trace nice and fine. And I'm gonna color in that black part. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put like a little circle here in the pupil so I remember not to color that in, because that's the highlight of the pupil. And I'm just gonna color in that black part. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna put the little circle here, and I'm gonna remember not to color that in, just like that. So he has these little white spots in his pupils. I'm also going to take my white Jelly Roll pen. I really like my Jelly Roll pens. They're really fun to play with. This is just the white one. I've used the white Sharpie marker before as well. And I just kind of scribble. I'm just over here kind of scribbling off to the side to get it started. And then I put a little dot in that pupil that I created. And then I'm also going to put a slightly larger dot in the white, or I'm sorry, in the green part. Just like that. Trying to make them round and not oblong. There we go. So it definitely adds some character to his eyes and creates a little grumpiness in him. So it adds that light. All right. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna color his legs. So I'm going to start with W8, and I just have 3 markers for this. I have W8, W6, and W4. Again, if you don't have the W's, you can use the N's or the T's or the C's. And if you have the odds instead of the evens, you can certainly use them. Just take a darker black with a medium, or like a darker gray with a medium gray, and then a light gray. So I've chosen somewhere in the middle. I'm going to start with my W8. And I'm gonna go ahead and shade in all of the legs because he's not a super big spider, so I feel like I can do all of the shading and still be able to blend it. So I'm again gonna use little brush strokes, and I'm again gonna think about where my shadow is, where my light's coming from. And I'm gonna kind of work with that area. I know that this cup is gonna actually shadow his little hand here. And so I'm gonna add shadow there, just like that. Then I'm gonna pick this leg, and it's really arbitrary which leg I decide to go with. I'm not doing it for any specific reason. I'm just picking a leg and going for it. And then since that light source is coming from this direction, this part is gonna be in shadow. So I'm just gonna add a little shadow there, and I'm gonna wrap his little hand around that spoon. Just like that. Then this leg that's behind the coffee cup, this part of it's gonna be in shadow. And then behind the coffee cup handle. And on the floor, just like that. Then behind the coffee cup again. And then behind his little hairy body here. Just like that. Okay. Now these legs are crossed in front of him, so I'm gonna kind of trace the bottom here where it would be on the floor. And then where this leg is behind this leg, I'm gonna add a little shadow. Just like that. This leg looks like his hair is in front of it. This is that first one, just like that. Okay, and I'm gonna, where it's touching the floor. Okay, so those ones are done. Then I'm gonna turn this little guy around, and we're gonna go this side. Okay, now I'm thinking if the sun's right here, which side is gonna be further away from the sun? So I'm just gonna add a little bit of a shadow down here. Just like that. Now this one comes out from behind his body, and the coffee cup is definitely blocking it from the sun. So we're gonna go like that. And then I'm gonna trace the bottom part of this around that mug. Just like that. And you guys notice, I mean, I totally talk myself through this stuff too. So don't feel bad for hanging out in your craft room talking to yourself. Sometimes you need expert advice, right? So that's totally fine. It actually kind of helps to talk it out and verbalize it, so you can figure out what it is that you're doing. So there you go. Now we're gonna move to the W6. It's gonna be a lot easier to do the W6 because you've already taken the time to lay out where your shadows are. So with that W6, I'm just gonna start over again, and I'm kind of doing it the wrong way. I always take the shadows and I push the shadows back in to themselves, because if you are trying to color a smooth gradient and you continue to color this direction, you're gonna keep dragging that shadow out into your highlight, and then you'll end up with a really muddy highlight, and you don't want that. So I usually take the shadows and I push them back into themselves. It's kind of hard to do in this very small space. I will give you that. But you want to make sure that your highlights stay nice and bright. Plus, we're only using 3 colors. So it's not too big of a deal on this one. But notice I'm always pushing that shadow back towards itself. Okay. Just like that. Now this crazy front leg here. I just look at his little grumpy face and it makes me smile. He is so grumpy. It makes me giggle. I love this stamp so much. I'm going to use him so much, you guys. This little guy's going to end up in my planner. He's going to end up on a lot of cards. I'm sure of it. He's definitely going to be a year-round stamp for me. This is not a Halloween-only type of stamp for me. For sure. All right, now I'm going to switch over to the W4. And with the W4, again, I'm going to continue to push that shadow back. And I'm gonna kind of show you a little trick here, is I'm gonna leave that highlight nice and light. Right now I'm leaving it white, because notice how I'm using this marker and kind of saturating the paper with this lighter gray. If I use this and then I leave that highlight white and I just do one quick swipe across it, it's gonna add a different value of gray. So it's gonna look like I used 4 markers to color instead of 3. So because you're super saturating the paper all around it, it makes that gray look darker. And so if you just do one quick coat in the highlight, it will definitely look like it has that extra color there. It's just a fun little trick to kind of expand your Copic collection without having to buy more markers, is if you super saturate the paper all around it and then just do one quick coat with that same color, it will look like it's one shade lighter. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll super saturate this paper all around it. Always pushing that shadow back down towards the shadow. And then I have this stark white highlight. So if I just do one quick coat over the highlight, now I have a different value of gray. So it's kind of a neat little trick to do. All right, so now we have this guy's body colored. We're gonna go back in with some of these colors, and we're gonna color the coffee mugs and all of that kind of stuff. What I do wanna do is I wanna pull in some yellows and oranges, because, you know, we're in fall, so we're gonna do some Halloween colors. But you guys know how addicted I am to candy corn, and so I'm gonna make one of these coffee mugs a candy corn coffee mug. So you can really use any oranges and any yellows for this, just so that you have a couple of each one so that you can blend them together. I've chosen Y04, and I'm gonna make this little coffee mug in front here, a candy corn coffee mug. So with the Y04, I'm just gonna kind of trace the bottom of the mug, and then I'm gonna go around the outside of the mug just a little bit, because I want it to look like the mug is rounded. So I'm just gonna do that very, very little bit. Oh my gosh, I'm off the screen. So I'm just gonna do that very, very little bit. Then I'm gonna take my next lightest color. I'm gonna use YR15. And with this YR15, I'm just gonna kind of shade in. I'm just making this gradient like a little bit. Just like that. Then my Y08 is what I'm using for my yellow, but since orange has a yellow base, I'm going to use this as the highlight for this area, but I'm going to use it as the shadow for the next color. Then I'm going to use Y11 because it's a super, super, super soft pale yellow. And I'm going to go across here and just kind of even those out. In my little candy corn cup. Now, like I did with his eye, I'm going to use that T1. Again, if you have some other color, C1, W1, N1, you can totally use that. But I'm going to use that to kind of shade the side here of what would be the white part of the candy corn. And I'm going to use it to shade inside the cup. Then I'm going to take my colorless blender and I'm just going to kind of ease that transition. So I'm going to push that yellow back down to where that yellow belongs. And I'm going to push that T marker into the shadow. And that's going to give me my soft gradient. I'm also going to add a little bit of this colorless blender inside there. Candy corn cup, it's so cute. Now, I have a couple of metallic markers. So with my metallic markers, this is a metallic gold, and it's not really a marker. I got this from one of my subscribers, and she said, I thought this would be fun for you to play with. And she was absolutely right. So thank you, Jen. So this little gold marker I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna use it for his spoon because I love how this pen comes out. It is super awesome. So I feel like he has this little gold spoon to color to stir in his sugar because he totally needs sugar in that coffee. The sentiment that comes with this is a little hashtag and it says "Screamin' sugar, please." So I know he's stirring some sugar in there. All right, now we're gonna color these other mugs. I think that this mug back here is going to be green like his eyes. So I'm gonna reuse my markers. I'm gonna use this G. Oh, whoa, I put the wrong cap on the wrong marker. What? I'm gonna use this G29 and that YG01. So I'm starting with the G29 because it's the darker color. And I'm gonna do the same thing, kind of the same premise that I used with the candy corn mug. But it's gonna be darker around the outside and lighter in the middle. So darker around the outside. I'm gonna go ahead and do the lip of the cup. And then it's gonna be lighter in the middle. Now, since these two colors are very, 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 very different, I'm gonna kind of feather this off like that. And then I'm gonna use the lighter color to oversaturate the paper. So I'm gonna kind of use a circle blending technique because I want these to blend together and have it be like a two-tone cup. So notice when I circle blend, I'm dragging some of that darker green into the lighter green, just like that. I'm going to put this on the inside of the cup. And there we go. He has that green cup. I also think that what I'm going to do is go back to my little gold pen because I think green and gold looks really great together. And I'm going to add some stripes to this cup with my gold pen. I'm kind of going to make them a little bit of a moon shape so that they go along with the shape of the cup, and it adds that idea that it's a rounded cup. So there's that. Now we're going to do this cup behind his head, and I think that this cup behind his head is going to be black. So I am going to pull in a darker marker. This is 110. And this is one of those specialty markers. So if you don't have 110, you can use 100. If you don't have 100, you can use your darkest of your grays. So you can use like C10 or W8 or W10 or anything like that. Just your darkest value of gray. And so what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to shadow the edges of the cups, or of the cup, so that it looks like it's circular or round in shape, like it's cylindrical. And I'm going to go around the lip, the inside of the lip of the cup. So there's that. Now, in order to make this like a straight line, I'm going to just trace this line down. Just like that. And then the handle of the cup. Just like that. There you go. Now, since I already have my W's out because I use them for his legs, I'm going to go ahead and just stick with those W's. I'm all about recycling your markers and, you know, continuing to use the same ones. So I'm just going to add some more W8 to this. And we're going to continue up our color spectrum so that we can make it look like it's a black mug. I'm on to my W6 now. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in the center of this mug. And I'm going to finish the handle of it. But I'm still going to go in with my W4 and wash that out just a little bit for the highlight. So I have my W4 here, and I'm just going to go down the center of this for the highlight. Because I still want it to be dark, I just want to add a little bit of highlight to it so it looks like the sun is shining on it. So there is that mug. And I think with that mug, I'm going to pull out my glitter pen. And so I have my Jelly Roll glitter pen. This is just a silver glitter. I don't even really know what it's called, but if you were in my February class, you got this with your class kit. So this is just a Jelly Roll silver glitter. And I'm just going to add a couple of little like polka dots to this mug. So he has a black polka dotted, shimmery, glittery mug. All right. So now the last one, I think I'm going to do purple, just like his body. So I am actually going to leave out the darkest colors, and I'm just going to go with the 3 lighter colors. We'll see how this works out for me. So I have my V17, and again, I'm going to go just like this around the edge of this mug. And around the lip on the inside. Around the bottom. And then I know that his little hand is going to leave a shadow here, so I'm just going to go ahead and put this in shadow because it's such a tiny spot. Then I'm going to go over to my V15. And again, I'm blending this out. I'm actually dragging that shadow color out into the highlight because I want that to happen. If I didn't want that, I would be pushing it the other direction, but I want this to have a little bit of texture to it. So I'm dragging that highlight out, or that shadow out into the highlight. And then I have my V12. And again, I'm kind of super saturating the paper here so that it blends nice and easily. There we go. I also noticed that I forgot to color this little hair coming out of the top of his head. So I'm going to use my V17 and I'm going to color this hair in. And I'm just tracing that line. Okay. Now, one more thing is he has this little spider web hanging here. So I'm going to do kind of a double treatment on it. I'm going to take my black multi-liner and I'm going to just draw a black line down there. But spider webs are usually not black. They're usually kind of white or glittery. So I'm going to take my glitter pen and I'm going to go right over the top of that black. So it's going to add a little interest to that. And there we have our little spider guy. Oh my gosh, he's so stinking cute. Thank you guys for joining me for this mini class. Thank you, Rabbit Hole Designs. You guys are amazing. I absolutely adore this little spider. He is so cute. Be looking for him. When you guys finish coloring this project, if you could totally post him on Instagram and Facebook, I would love to see how you colored him. Please hashtag Sweet Sentiment and hashtag the Rabbit Hole Designs, or TRHD if you would like to do it that way, because I want them to see how many of us color this little spider because he is so stinking cute. Thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I